after many years of building this car on and off, well, A, we're back to work on my twin-turbo LT swapped RX7, but B, we are on the home stretch to fire this thing up. That is the goal, is to get this thing fired up for the first time, and we're not very far off. In fact, we just got the largest, by far, piece of the puzzle done, and it's mostly connecting dots. Let's hook it up kind of thing, you know, a little bit of wiring, and we should be able to kick tires like the fires on this thing. At least try to start it up. Don't get me wrong, it's a list, but assuming no major derailments, there will always be derailments on a build of this scale, but without any major derailments, shouldn't take too much effort to get this thing to the point of trying to fire it up. So, nothing left to it but for me to quit jibber jabber and get the hustling. I gotta hustle if I wanna get this done in the next few days here. So, I'm gonna get to it. I'm gonna try my absolute best. I don't wanna make any promises, but again, without any major derailments, I don't see why not. So let's find out. Only one way to find out. That's to do it. So, quit distracting me. Get into it. Grab my tools. Whew. Well, there could not be better timing for this. So today's video is sponsored by BetterHelp. And I have been dealing with a lot of personal stuff the last couple weeks, month plus, really. It's like I took every personal thing I could have to deal with and just somehow crammed it all in the last few weeks. And it has been a struggle. And me, with the type of upbringing I had, my childhood, things I went through growing up, I have become a hyper independent. I don't like relying on anyone for anything except myself, you know, and that makes things difficult. And it makes taking steps like trying out therapy just to even see if it's something that might work, help, whatever the case, difficult. Not to mention, I think the biggest thing, this is something I think most of us struggle with, it's that all or nothing mentality where you're like, oh, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. You know, I'm going to need to find a local office, find the right place and schedule the appointment. And then I got to take time off doing stuff, which maybe I'm already behind, and then go do it. And then I call it the rabbit hole loop, because you convince yourself you got to do it all the way, and then you just never do it because all the way is too much. So then you just go back to not doing it at all. And that is why I think BetterHelp's so cool, because the barrier to entry gets dropped so much lower to where it's so easy to just try it and see what you think. You know, you take the quiz online, you get matched with a licensed therapist, you then see what you think. You know, if you're not jiving with them, you can change, no extra cost. You know, you can do it via video chat like you would expect, but also via phone call or text, whatever you feel comfortable with. So that way, again, it lowers that step. It makes that step so much smaller where you can at least do it and then see what you think. Maybe it doesn't work for you, but then you know. Then at least you know. And I don't know. I just think that's important. I think it's important to break the loop, because doing it a lot of times is a lot better than not doing it at all. You know, that being said, if you are interested in doing it, trying it, you can click the link down in the description or go to betterhelp.com/TaylorA with 2 R's to get 10% off your first month of therapy. Not to mention the steps easy, and see what you think. Just see what you think, you know? That's all we can do. Try things, see how it goes. So speaking of starting, I'm trying to get this thing started up, and I got a lot on the agenda to do to get to there, and I'm trying to get to there. So I need to get back to it. Well, before we start making new lines, we need to reinstall some of the lines that we have that are already made for the dry sump. These have been off for quite a while, because when I was working on putting the Pro Charger setup on, basically we were going to have to relocate the dry sump and do all new lines and yada yada. So anyway, they haven't been on in a while, and I kind of forgot exactly which way they go. This is the thing with dry sumps, man. There's a lot of lines in not a lot of area, and trying to get these all to fit on there is a little bit of a puzzle, you know. And these lines having 90s and 45s on them, they could kind of go either which way. So it admittedly took me a few tries to get them to where I think was how they were before. But now we got to keep chugging and get the rest of these lines hammered out. So my goal with this fuel system is to get it done as quick as possible, because it's one of the big things standing in our way of getting this car done, but also, you know, make it kind of nice. Like, I've never mounted a regulator onto the engine. I've never really had room to do that, so I'm pretty excited about having this regulator just right there on the engine. The downside is the one line has to be super short, which sounds good, but it is not always the best thing, because it can be very, very difficult to get the fittings to line up. But that being said, we got the regulator on. We know where we're going there, so we just need our other point, which is our fuel filters. So since we're going to be running 2 lines all the way to the front, and we got 2 rails. We're going to run 2 fuel filters. That way we don't have to go down into one and then split back into 2, but not to mention kind of double the filtration. We have a filtration for each side. They can kind of be independent, I guess, if you think of it that way. And also, we're putting them really close to the rails. Now, this is not something I've done in the past. I always put the fuel filter all the way in the back because it's by the tank, and that's kind of the easiest place to put it. But in reality, it's ideal to have it as close to the rails as possible. So if there is any junk anywhere in the system, it's going to get caught. There's not a long distance between the filter and where it's going into the injectors. Now, there's a few different types of AN lines, probably really several, and what we're using here is PTFE. So your normal rubber AN line is pretty straightforward to assemble. You've just got the line and then the bottom fitting and the top fitting, they screw together, you're done. Now, with PTFE, we have, instead of a rubber inside, we have a Teflon liner. So I've got to put this ferrule in, I've got to cut down the braid some, so that way it doesn't get caught in the threads, and then put the bottom and the top piece together, and it's almost kind of like a compression fitting on top of that. Now, there's several benefits to this. Number one is that the line diameter for the same inside diameter is thinner because it's like a very thin sleeve versus thick rubber. Obviously, they're a little more difficult to assemble, but also they don't degrade like rubber lines. No matter what kind of rubber lines you have, they will inevitably break down with ethanol, and you'll have little chunks of rubber that go through your fuel system and then get caught in your injectors and then clog your injectors, and then your car starts misfiring and running on 6 cylinders, and it seems like it's an ignition issue because of the way it's misfiring, and you spend all this time changing all these ignition components and then barely qualify, have to bow out against Ben Hobson in the top 64, and it just kind of screws up your whole season, all because of some clogged injectors because of your rubber lines. Obviously, as you can tell, I've been through this before. I learned that lesson the hard way, and since then, every car it gets PTFE lines, because generally if I'm putting AN lines on something, it's going to be running at least ethanol. In this case, we're running methanol, and it's kind of like those same problems, but that much worse. So anyway, we're doing PTFE lines. It's all D-Torx lines and fittings, so everything's consistent, which is something that I think is important. If you're going to use AN stuff, it's ideal if you can use kind of the same lines, fittings, adapter fittings. It just makes everything a lot easier. It makes everything go together nicer. But yeah, so we've got our lines from the filters to the rails, which is pretty exciting. Got those done, real satisfying. Got our filters in. Now we got to get our rear filter situated. So this is basically a pre-filter for the pump. The pump's going to pump into the surge tank, and then the surge tank is what's actually going to be feeding the engine. And this is where things get a little crazy. Up front we got some challenges with getting all the lines and fittings to fit, but back here it's kind of like, it's kind of like a Medusa octopus. It's a puzzle. It really is a puzzle, because no matter how we do this and which line we put where, there's going to be one line that is going to be a pain. The rounding's not going to be good. The angles, it's going to be difficult to get on and off. And after some trial and error, I've decided that line is going to be the return from the engine to the surge tank. It's just kind of the one that makes the most sense to be the pain. But yeah, it's a lot of lines and a lot going on in a pretty small area back here. So we really got to... It's like playing a game of chess, we got to plot out our moves. So we're going to have bulkheads going through in and out of this area, so we don't have to drill these massive holes, to shove the entire fitting and line through there. It just makes everything cleaner, simpler, it seals it up better. But unfortunately, the bulkhead that I had lying around while I'm waiting for some more bulkheads, it doesn't, the material's too thin. So the nut bottoms out before it actually tightens down on the bulkhead, so I have to make this little washer situation, but you gotta do what you gotta do, figure it out, problem solving. But this will be the return line, and this is really the moment of truth. As long as we can get this line in and out feasibly, then the rest are pretty much straightforward. Again, we chose this one drew the short straw. This one was going to be the one that was going to not be very fun, and that rhymed. And so far, so good. It's not too bad. Phew, all right. Well, I've just been making bacon lines. Look at all these fittings. I like saving the bags. It's satisfying to see. 2 things. Number one, I was questioning my sanity. I'm like, I used to dread making PTFE lines. Like, it was the worst thing in the world. And these have gone together so easy. And I'm like, man, I I feel like it's normally hard, and I noticed they improved their design a little bit. You can, maybe you can see, it's hard to tell, but these have a little bit of a step, a little flare on the end, which makes it easier to get it in. But yeah, that being said, typical with AN lines and fittings, man. No matter how many you order, I say, if you watch the last episode where I built the fuel tank and stuff, I said this exact same thing, and I ordered and got the things I needed then, but Amazon kind of jipped me on my bulkheads. They'll be here today. But there's always something you need, usually, right? So you have ORB, O-ring boss. That is what this is threading into. So for example, fuel rails, 8 ORB. Our regulator, 10 ORB. So we have 8 ORB to 8 AN. We also have 8 ORB to 10 AN. 10 ORB to 10 AN. What do we need? 10 ORB to 8 AN. We have, out of 4 combos in those 2 sizes, the one we're missing is the one we need. But I mean, you can look at it like we have the right ones for everything else, you know. But yeah, basically, I was planning on running 10 AN lines off here into the regulator, but just how tight this is over on this side with the intake manifold, I'm going to run 8s, which is fine because it's a return. There's going to be less fuel going through it, and then we'll have a single 10. Anyway, fuel filters, dual filters set up, so we're going to be coming in the front here and then going up and out. That way we didn't have to make like a tight arc in and then loop all the way back around. We've got that into the rails, so that's a pretty big step done. Regulator mounted. We're just waiting on those 2 fittings to be here today, and we can make our 8s to there. Waiting on our 2 bulkheads, which will also be here today. I hope. They were supposed to be here yesterday. And we can finish this up. You can see we've got a lot going on in here. So we've got line into the filter, into the pump. Filter protects the pump. It is not a very fine filter. It's just more so to protect the pump and keep clean fuel to the surge tank, right? So anyway, pump in. This is returning. So when the surge tank's full, it'll basically return back to the main tank. This is going to be the return from the rails. This one was really tricky to get in here. Like one of these 3 was going to be awkward, and it was going to be this one, but then I decided to make it this one. And then this will be our feed out. So this is going to go to this Y, and then on the other side are 2 lines going up to the front. So 3 10 AN lines running to the front, and all the fuel lines are done. So while we're waiting on those, we got to move on, unless they happen to get here early, to the dry sump lines. Now, here's the thing. I have some really, really nice Dash 16 stuff, but I'm saving it for the Miata. I want to make sure the Miata gets the super nice, crazy lightweight stuff. And with the dry sump tank being inside the car, where I ended up mounting it behind that little cover that I would need to redo, it means we got to make a lot of lines. Every time you bulkhead a line, you add 4 fittings to it, right? Like you have 1 line going front to back versus you bulkhead it. Now you've got 2 fittings versus 2, right? Does that make sense? So every time you bulkhead it, you add 2 fittings. But if it's 2 lines, 4, okay, you get what I'm saying. So when I planned this, I was planning on putting the turbos up front, which is why I couldn't put the tank up here, because it couldn't fit here. But now the problem is getting lines. There's a lot of hot stuff there that we'd have to try to go through and bulkhead and all of that. Instead, what we can do, I'm pretty sure, is just put the tank basically right dang here, right next to the dry sump. Cuts our lines way down. We basically only need 3 main lines. We need the 2 returns and the 1 feed versus 6 plus of the lines if we bulkhead it, shorter lines, all of that. Now, it does put some more weight forward, but that is compensated, number 1, by the turbos going in the back. Because again, the plan with it there was the turbos up here. Plus, being able to fit the tank so far back, which I didn't think I was going to be able to do, also offsets it. So it's kind of like, you know, we're fighting this battle of like as much weight as it can get to the back. And we're, you know, moving the tank forward is losing a little bit of that battle, but we gained a lot more ground than I thought we would. Does that make sense? That's how I'm justifying it. But basically, if we can fit it here, then A is very short line, so it's less weight overall. But B, we only need 6 fittings. I got to check, but I'm pretty sure. So, yeah, basically that's the plan. Pretty freaking simple, man. All things considered, like we really don't have that many. Like we're chugging, and we've got a good plan for all of the lines and fittings. It's a matter of getting those in and making the tank fit here if it fits here. So I guess we should figure that out. Hooking and booking, baby, hooking and booking. But it's looking good. It's looking good. I'm very, very happy that we are Yeah. Well, after that whole spiel about the dry sump tank, which we still got to do, my fittings did finally show up. So basically we can make these 8 AN return lines. Now, one other thing with AN lines and making them is kind of the smaller you go, the trickier it is, especially with PTFE, because it's just kind of everything's smaller, you know, it's kind of, you have like less margin. And then also we've got a really, really short line. And this is, I used to be bad about making my lines way too long because I was so afraid of making them too short and wasting the line. But yeah, when it comes to these real short ones, you don't really have that margin. If you make it a little too long, it's not going to work. And then also, them being smaller diameter, it's kind of harder to get the braiding cut back and everything. But again, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying, you know, nice little short line, nice challenge. You know, we're just challenging ourselves here. All right, well, last line back here is done. Funny story, this is a 60-degree fitting that I was gonna use, and I didn't realize I left it here, and I had this either 45 or 30, probably 45, on the table, and I built the line with it, but it worked, you know, it's fine, these things happen. I guess technically we still gotta do our vent line, but I gotta get a one-way valve, a rollover valve, but anyway, yeah, sweet. This whole contraption is pretty crazy, but it keeps everything kind of nice and out of the way. We got our bulkheads there. So, whew, what a line making. So many lines. It's not bad, though. Like I said, these D-Torx lines and fittings are really easy to assemble. PTFE is normally a pain, but it really hasn't been bad. The 8's definitely a little harder, but overall, chugging through it. It's more so just the plan and phase. So, yeah, we've got to do our return back. So it's one line, and then our two feeds. Come on, stay up. You were just up. 2 feeds into the filter, and then all our fuel lines are done and dusted. So we're almost there. These came out pretty decent. I should have made this like a 1/4 inch shorter. The shorter the line is, the less margin for error you have, right? Like if you make a line this long and it's 1 inch long, it's not the end of the world. This line 1 inch long, it's not going to fit. This one, it's kind of like wonky looking, but it's just the way it is. It's the way it has to be. Okay, yeah. See if we have enough line. I'm pretty sure I underdid it. We'll figure it out. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. We still got to get the other lines made. So let's do that. Almost there. We're almost there. Almost done with fuel lines. The dry sump lines are a lot simpler. I mean, we still got a bit because we got to do, but we're chugging. Once we're done with the lines, we're done with, like, that's a huge, huge step. All we got to do is toss the ECU in, starter, some wiring, some firing, hopefully. Anyway, give it ever. Let's get back to work. So I normally have a habit of over-ordering lines when it comes to doing lines and fittings, and I always end up with a ton left over. But in this case, having 2 10 AN feeds and then a 10 AN return all the way from the very back to the very front, plus all the odd and end lines, it's not looking great for having enough line to finish both feeds and the return. Now, fortunately, we only really need one feed to fire it up. We do need a return. We need one. We only have one. But we definitely need, we just need one feed because the 2 is more so for a fuel flow thing. We can jerry rig it to make it work and run on one if it comes down to that. But the big question is if my leftover fittings and line is enough to do the return. Oh, no dice. A little too short. I do have this other piece, and I have some more fittings, so I could do like a bulkhead, just obviously not through anything, and then do a second line, but I'd rather keep it one line. I don't know. I'll see. I guess it'll depend on, we'll get the rest of the stuff done and then worry about that. Because like I said, we can basically wire these together after this filter and then just run one feed, but we still need the return, right? Basically. So yeah, if that's stopping us, I'll do it that way. But my line might be here in time anyway. So like I said, we got to move on to the figuring out, we got to get the dry sump tank mounted. Make sure it's actually going to fit up here. If my plan works, if so, simplifies things. And then electronics. And then, hopefully. Yeah, this should work. I was trying to minimize the drop on this piece, but it basically had an area where it would stop cutting because it was losing, it was basically contact. And you can see the difference when you got to go over a cut multiple times or you wasting too much time, how much more slag it leaves. So getting the settings right, I've learned with like the CNC plasma cutter, having basically going as fast as you can while still making the cut will generally leave the least mess. So now we've got a bit of extra mess to clean up, but it's not a big deal. This is, we're doing this project quick and dirty. The goal is just get it done. And, I'm not saying I'm not going to make things as nice as I can within a reasonable time. I used to be a big proponent of, I think it's actually called the 80-20 rule, but I didn't know it was an actual thing. And I called it the 75-25 rule, where you put in 25% of the effort, you usually get 75% of the result. And then if you put in another 75% effort to get 25% more result. And I used to be all on the 25% effort train. And then at some point I kind of switched around and I started doing the 75% more effort, 25% more result. And I'm trying to unlearn that habit, basically. Well, joke's on me. And this is where sometimes doing the 25% effort for the 75% result goes wrong. And I wasn't paying enough attention. And basically, I marked the bend and meant it the wrong way. But I had to remake it, and we remade it. That's what matters. Bracket done. Gotta get this dang thing installed. So now for the less fun part, cleaning the paint off this chassis. It's the downside of having basically a an already done, already painted chassis that you're working with, because everything you add, you gotta clean off the paint. And cleaning paint off tubes is just never a good time. If you've ever done it, it's not fun because it's a 360-degree thing. So I don't know. It's hard to explain. You get little small little strips of stripping progress each time, but it's okay. Again, I'm not complaining, I'm just saying. I gotta reiterate that. It's important that you know I'm not complaining, I'm just saying. But we got this bracket in place. We got it done. We got the tank bolted to it. Admittedly, if I'm being honest with you guys, doing the 75-25, the 25 side of it, my holes weren't in exactly the right spot, so I had to open up the holes on the dry sump tank brackets a little bit, and yeah, you know, these things happen. But we got it tacked in, and doing a little hammering just to bend that edge down, you know, since we didn't have the perfect fit. And speaking of not having the perfect fit, we didn't have the perfect fit around this pipe either. It was something I meant to change from the cardboard template to cutting it out of metal, but I just kind of completely forgot and did not change it. So basically the notch was way too large. So I've got this 1/8" plate. Not to mention this is where a lot of the load's going to be coming from. So, you know, in hindsight, it's a good thing. We're reinforcing the plate, right? You know, that's what I said to myself, at least when I decided I had to do this. But we got that edge bent down pretty nice to where, you know, we can actually at least get a good weld all the way across the top, and should be pretty solid. It doesn't look too shabby for welding into some dirty, previously painted steel. So now it's just a matter of putting it all together. But while we're here, I got some different fittings for my Y thing in the back. So I was using ORB to AN and then like a double swivel, and I got some ORB to swivels. So, you know, it's pretty satisfying, just cleaning things up. Hell yeah. I ain't going nowhere. Drain plug's gonna be a little tricky. Always freaking is, but that's okay. Does need to rotate a little bit, I think. So getting this thing lined up for the lines, I'm still going through this kind of debacle of doing these out of this 16 stuff that I have or using some 12 that I have, and yeah, it's kind of tricky, but also trying to get this thing exactly right. The bracket, it's not perfect, but it's okay. It's okay. We're trying some different things. I tried some 16s on the tank. I've got these 12s on the pump that I modified these little 12 to 16 adapter thingies, and taking those off to see if 12 is the right move because the lines are so short. You know, the longer the line is, the more important the size is, it being large enough. So, you know, we're figuring it out. All right, well, I'm trying to stick with myself. My promise I made myself. It's a little, just the tiniest bit canted this way. I made some little shims to level it out. It's just the way this needed to be a little bit longer. That's the downside when you're going from cardboard template to the real thing. You know, like cardboard can smush and mush, and it can seem like, you know, it's the right shape. But then when you do it out of something that doesn't smush and mush like metal, yeah, anyway. But it's fine. It's totally fine. It's in there like swimwear. It's solid. It ain't going nowhere. Yeah, pretty happy with how it came out too. I feel like it, you know, looks pretty snazzy. I just eyeballed the holes. We're sticking to get it done. And I gotta say it's fun. That was an intentional rhyme, but it was fun. Oh man, it is kind of fun to just like do it. The Miata is so complicated, and there's no playbook. There's so many things you have to figure out with every little step, you know, that it can be hard to make progress. So it is a nice change of pace to just slam something together. And I don't know if I've taken a look back, or you guys taken a look back, but like seeing the lines in here and the regulator and now the tank and the filter housings, like it's really coming together. Starting to have the pieces, you know? So anyway, I've been going back and forth on this. I was going to use 16, but I was going to use but I have enough of this 12AN stuff, and I don't want to use my super expensive 16 stuff and then end up needing to move the tank or change something. So I'm going to do it out of 12, which makes everything a lot easier anyway. So I have dual 12 returns, and then we'll have our 12AN feed to the pump, and then we basically just got to go out of the pump to the filter housing, which I have to mount, but we're pretty much done with the lines we need for this thing to run. So yeah, nothing left to it but to get back to it. I'm gonna start making these lines. These should be a lot easier because they're not PTFE. Yeah, try to plumb this up. I was originally gonna go like this way and loop in, but I think we can tuck them up enough to stay away from the balancer and just go straight in. And if you guys think I'm crazy for doing that, this is how the factory NASCAR motor is plumbed. Same way. So they can do it, I can do it. All right, let's get to it. Freaking rhyming fool today. Also, just an FYI, I didn't know this for a long time, but like some of these fittings have threads in this part of the housing and they're opposite. So, oh wait, am I going the right way? Yeah, I just tell you that, just to go the wrong way. So it's lefty-tighty. I don't even know if these are the same brand fittings as line I got. Also, this AN assembly lube, I don't really use it for PTFE, but oh shoot, it is helpful with these rubber lines. It's funny, it is a lot easier non-PTFE. Of course, you're none of those sizes. Who needs vice straws? Sweet, it actually came out pretty nice. Pretty happy with that. All right, feed time, which I already swapped this feed fitting to a 16. Wish I hadn't. So as the theme goes, I need basically an ORB 90 thing to get the feed into the pump. It's just very tight there. There's a lot of lines in a small space. That's the thing I dislike the most about dry sumps is just all the lines. You got a dang Medusa lines going on, and yeah, that was not going to work. So while we're waiting on that one, which luckily next day, should be here tomorrow. I want to get the filter housing mounted up. I debated this spot for a while, but we got to worry about the charge piping from the turbos, and this is the order of operations thing, trying to figure out what else is going to go in there that's kind of immovable. You want to put the immovable stuff first, or the stuff that you have less ability to change its location, but I also want to get this done. So went ahead and got the filter housing mounted, got our feed line made. And now we can party on while we're here. I want to go ahead and get the injectors in just so that's done and dusted. One more thing out the way, and it's just satisfying little toss it in and be satisfied thingy. All right, so these are Deechworks 2400cc injectors. Crazy, I've never had injectors this large. There's not even like a screen in the bottom. But yeah, so basically we need all the dang injector we can get. Honestly, the fuel system as a whole was one of my biggest hangups on this build, because methanol, a lot of people are familiar. When you go from pump gas to ethanol, you need a lot more fuel system for the same horsepower. So then if you make more horsepower, you need obviously even more. And that number increases drastically when you go from ethanol to methanol. So the fuel system requirements are just absolutely bonkers, as is the case here. Boom, one set of injectors installed. Do the other side. Now, fortunately, I was able to talk to Brandon at Deechworks. He's, the tech guy I deal with a lot, because he's very, very, very knowledgeable. And, he can plot out a whole fuel system without me having to hardly do anything. It's great. But he, we did some math, mainly he did some math, and figured out that we could make this work on these injectors instead of having to get the crazy big giant ones that probably wouldn't fit, if that makes sense. Boom, injectors installed. I've been so focused on just getting the job done that I forgot to talk about what we got going on for a fuel system. I mean, obviously, most of you probably know if you've watched, or you can see, it's all Deechworks. Lines, fittings, the pumps, the controllers, the injectors, everything Deechworks. I've had Deechworks vet every car pretty much that I've built in the last 7 years, 8 years, and have had such great luck. And they continue innovating, with the fuel pumps, which is what's making this possible to do with the surge tank and everything, instead of having to try to do a mechanical pump. And anyway, jibber jabber, we'll talk more about that when we toss pumps in, which is one thing we still got to do on the fuel system side. But as far as it's coming together, man, we got one main oil line left. We've got our feed from the tank to the pump, because I need that oddball, little ORB direct to 90 thing, which, as it turns out, I also need 2 more, different size though, but for the turbo scavenge stages. So basically we got that one line from the tank, then we'll have 2 feeds and 2 returns. But the filter housing is in, boom, feed line from the pump to it and then out all the way into the engine. Fuel system wise, we only have 2 lines left here. Just our return and our feed, which they're both pretty simple. They're long, but they're just, you know, we have A and B. It's just a matter of toot toot. And then that's done. So we really are closing in, man. We're closing in. So I do want to test the throttle body that I got. I got a cheap one just because I'm going to have to kind of do some fabric hobbling to try to make kind of like a dual to single inlet thing for the charge piping, you know. And I didn't want to do that to a nice one in case I mess it up, you know, which is entirely possible. But point is, oh man, it just feels good just to look at this and see lines and fittings and tanks. Freaking lions and tigers and bears, oh my. Okay, we're chugging. There was something line-wise I was going to look at. But I want to move on to electronics. We got to start figuring that out. Oh, the throttle body. It wasn't even a line. Oh, also we got special guests coming. Ron and Harry from Nitto are coming to check out the shop. So we'll give them a tour. I'm excited. And we're going to go get dinner. FT Orlando's this weekend. So yeah, I'm just tidying up. While I wait for them to get here. They should be here any minute. And then, yeah, we'll see what we get into after that. Well, between hanging out with Ron and Harry and showing them the shop, getting dinner, and then going to FT Orlando itself, it gave me time to get my fittings in. And here's the thing here. We need, basically, in an ideal world, all of these would be direct 90s like we're trying to install here. The problem is when you put them side by side, this close together, you kind of can't install them side by side. So it's, yeah, it had to get creative and come up with a solution. But after quite a lot of finagling, I finally figured out a combination of fittings and then the fittings that attach to the fittings that attach to the pump to make it all work and basically get in and out of this very cluttered intersection of lines. So we got the turbos cartridges clocked so we can do the drains, and we're draining straight to the pump. So the pump's kind of effectively pulling the oil through and out of the turbos instead of them just gravity feeding back. Now, the benefit to this is, you know, in our case, the turbo's high enough, it wouldn't really be a problem, but sometimes your turbo's kind of in a weird spot and it doesn't maybe have the best gravity drain back, but also, you know, instead of going to the tank and then having the pump pull it out, it's just the pump's pulling it out. And when I did this exact same way on the Vet, a lot of people were concerned that it would pull the turbos dry or whatever, but that's not how it works because since it's pulling vacuum, it just becomes a pressure differential basically. So anyway, basically you got those 2 lines from the turbos back to the dry sump pump. And then arguably our most important line is the feed from the tank to the dry sump pump because that's what's gonna, you know, feed the engine. So I opted for some high flow fittings there since even if I wanted to do 16, we couldn't really fit 16s there. And yeah, so now a lot of debacle in with getting fittings and while I'm waiting on fittings, wanting to work on something else, but then the fittings show up. So now that the fittings and the lines are done, we can try to figure out this throttle body situation, if this cheap one's going to work. Again, I got to modify it, so I'm not 100% sure. But after trying it a few different ways, I'm still a little unsure. So I'm going to move on to something else. That's the best way to get a project done is just anytime you get a little stumped or you're indecisive, just move on to something you can do. And what I can do is weld this fitting together. I basically got to make my own adapter fitting for this vacuum regulator because it's too big to thread directly into the valve cover where we need it to go. So basically I had to make our own little dealio there, and I thought it was going to look a little cleaner than it did. And yeah, pulling out the box of magic trick tools fittings combinations that I've acquired over the years, and nothing's really looking great. No matter how I do this, it's just real bulky, and it's kind of just hanging out there in thin air. It seems very fragile, like it's just going to get broken off. But you know what? At the end of the day, 75-25 rule, I spent a little bit of time trying to make it nicer, but all I'm going to do now is just taper it with the micro lathe just so it looks like almost kind of like it's an actual fitting, not something I cobbled together. And, you know, we'll make it work how we got to make it work. All right, well, good timing. Fuel line just came in, so I can finish up those last 2 fuel lines. Hopefully, I got enough to do both of them. We'll find out. Throttle body on. I was debating if I needed to use this or not, but I think I do for the way the seal is and the way this throttle body's made. Yeah, anyway. It's on there. It looks pretty sick with a throttle body on it. Now that I think about it, I have it flipped just because it looks less goofy than it does sitting up. But it's going to be curious how, I don't know. We can work around that. That ain't no big thing. That's the tricky part with the order of operations, though. You know, this, I'm not in love with it, but I could not think of a great way to do this. And I'm good with that. The other option would be to do like a little line and then mount it to the firewall, but this keeps it out of the way. Which that is for, basically we'll be able to set how much vacuum the dry sump can pull. Because this being so many stages and dual returns, it's a high vacuum setup. It's basically gonna pull such a vacuum in the crankcase, or has the ability to, that it could pull too much and basically pull the seals in. We want it to pull just enough to where, hopefully it mostly, just like the Vet does, Vet has very similar setup. That's why there is no catch can on the Vet. It's just that one-way out valve. But hopefully it pulls enough vacuum to offset the blow by, the positive pressure, and, effectively keep all our oil in the engine. There's something else I did. Oh yeah, got these lines done. Turbo feeds, turbo drains. These were kind of a pain, honestly. But we got them done. Got our turbo drains, our crazy combo deal down here. I got this line tucked up by using a P-clamp over here because it was kind of just hanging out in thin air. And yeah, we got our T off the filter housing, so we still got a spot for like a temp sensor, which I'd like to do on the bottom side. And then it feeds each turbo. That's done. Oh, feed line from the tank with these high flows. Boom. And the boom and the boom. That's done. I've been jogging. Okay. Moving on. The lines. Yeah, we gotta finish the lines.
These last two fuel lines, the second feed and the return, are the last two fuel lines, as far as I know. I mean, well, maybe I guess the vent one, but the last two fuel lines we need in order to fire this thing up. So it's a big deal.
Final fuel line / line. Well, I mean, there's probably other lines I'm not thinking of, like vacuum lines and stuff, but as far as the lines we need, it is the final fuel line. Way back in the day when I was building the Miata, the first time doing its fuel lines, I said that. A little jingle from Final Countdown or whatever. Those of you who are my age will remember that. I did end up having to make this return 2 pieces, just because I should have ordered more. I thought the 20-foot line would be enough, which, I mean, it wasn't enough. Well, I guess not. Yeah, anyway, so basically, I've got this 90-degree bulkhead here. We'll just make a little tab right there, bolt that on, and then it kind of makes all the lines the same, whereas we have the feeds going up and having a place to stop, the main feeds, and then going into the engine, and then it'll be the same with the return. Now, that's how I'm justifying it to myself, because I didn't have long enough line, and I didn't want to have to order more line again, so I thought, well, at least this way, all the lines that go attached to the engine also have a place to attach to the chassis, so it's like the long lines can kind of just stay and pop the other ones off, something like that, That's how I made myself feel better about having to, sorry, split it into 2. But that's done and dusted. All the lines are done and dusted. I mean, again, I'm sure there's probably more somewhere, but the valve cover breather, waiting on a check valve, a couple, I'm sure. But as far as the lines we needed, plus some, all in, all done. Turbo feeds, I did make this one a touch short. Now that I'm looking at it, I might have to make it a little longer, but that's okay. That ain't no big thing. But we got all our freaking Medusa ones, our turbo drains, our returns to the tank feed from the tank, big old fittings down, all our freaking turbo feeds, feed into the end feeds, returns, everything. Look at that. Auto body on. I figured out my plan for this. I'm just waiting on these 2 reducers because they're going to be kind of an integral part of the aesthetics of the charge piping. But we don't even need a charge piping to start it, so it's not a big deal. It's just, that's one thing I will say about doing it this way. I'm normally opposed to this. My standard method of approach would not be to do it this way and do the prioritize getting it started up and then worry about the rest. But I decided to on this because I just wanted to hear it fire up. It's been years of on and off of this project, but I'm so glad I did, because seeing all this stuff come together and see, you know, it's like bolting stuff in and making lines and stuff so much easier than the fab work, and it goes so much faster that you get so much forward progress visually that you're like, oh, heck yeah, like we're getting there. So yeah, I don't know. It just feels good. So I still got to put the pumps in the surge tank. I might do that in a bit. Tank, we got to test it, make sure it's good. But then it's a matter of putting fuel in it. ECU and harness, cake, some basic wiring just for starter and things. But speaking of the starter, that's one thing that might be a little complicated for us. But that's okay. Nothing we can't solve. We will have to kind of take this off to take the tape off. That is one thing I thought of. But basically just a few odds and ends left to try to fire this thing up for the first time, which, man, what a crazy feeling after all this time to have this much forward progress and figuring out, you know, when I ordered the reducers, I got the 3.5 coming for our downpipes. We can get those done. Again, don't need them to start it per se, but, you know, it's like, it's so much easier to start looking at all that other stuff now that we got all this stuff in here. And, whew, man, it just feels good. Look at that engine bay coming together. Whew. All right, well, yeah, before I jibber-jabber on forever, I actually need to mow the yard. With all the rain, the grass got so tall that there was a snake in the backyard, spooked Ella. And, yeah, I just need to mow while it's not raining for once, because the grass is tall. We got snakes in the grass, literally. But, yeah, I got some of the stuff I need to do. I've been, like I said at the beginning, I've been behind personal stuff going on. It's been a roller coaster. A lot going on, but we're dealing, we're partying, we're chugging. It's only up from here, hopefully. I shouldn't say that. Why would I say something like that? Oh, gosh. Anyway, I gotta wrap this up before I, not gonna jinx myself anymore. Coil packs, that's one other thing. I got the brackets good there. I got the wires. Okay. Goodbye. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks for subscribing. I'll see you next time. Goodbye. Oh, and don't forget, let me know in the comments what you think of the progress so far, and I'll see you next time. Did I say that? I said that. Okay, goodbye. Also, maybe if I'm not too lazy while editing this, here's some clips of my recent flight escapades. Got my freaking radio communications down. Hadn't done it in like 3 flights, like months. And then I did the entire process between 2 airports, traffic pattern, blah, 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 and I don't think I had a single hiccup. I'm so stoked. So anyway, should be someone in not too long. So for anyone who's interested in that, maybe I'll throw some clips. This is already probably too long, so okay. At least one though, if I put this part in. Okay? All right. Okay, goodbye.
To Quebec, 199 right clear, touch and go.
9 right clear, touch and go, 432 Quebec. Alright, so the wind should be coming from the right, so we'll go right wind down. Yeah. Only slip for as long as you think you need. Once you think you're back on the glide path, you can. I'll kick it out. Oh, yes! Very good.
Oh, we have no flaps.
Oh, but that landing was very good.
Yeah, well, now I'm finally like kind of playing it like